Ballerina, also known as From the World of John Wick Ballerina, was directed by Len Wiseman and starring Ana de Armas as her new character Eve. To start off with, this movie rocks. This movie is really, really good. I went and saw it Saturday with a group of friends and we had a great time. Everyone seemed to love it. One of my buddies joked that there wasn't enough ballerina dancing scenes. That was funny. No, this movie, super good. This movie rocked. But does it hold up to the original 4 John Wick movies? Without further ado, I'm going to tell you exactly why you should go see it in theaters. Welcome to Shoney Judgment, and this is my movie review of Ballerina. Prepare to be judged.
I'm working on it.
So about the plot of this movie, not to get into spoilers, it basically takes place between John Wick's 3 and 4, and it tells a story of a new character called Eve, played by Ana de Armas, and this is her origin story into the universe of John Wick. Now let's get into Ana de Armas' character. Did her character work? Yes, absolutely. She was amazing. She brought a new flavor to the series. Her character was great. One high point of her character was her fighting style was significantly different than John Wick's. Now keep in mind that John Wick and Eve, Ana de Armas' character, they both came from the same place originally. So their fighting styles are very, very similar. But one thing I liked about this movie, and this was confirmed in the trailer, no spoilers, they basically said that she is smaller and weaker than all of her male opponents that she'll be fighting. So the movie itself, the trailer itself, says that she has to be smarter, be unpredictable, and basically cheat. That leads me into talking about the action. So how does the action hold up in this movie? Very, very well. Now, I will say the action in this movie is not as strong as the John Wick movies, but that's only because of the overall experience. When I say that, I'm only talking the overall experience. John Wick has always been strong from beginning to end. This one didn't feel as strong, but it could just be they were introducing a new character with a new fighting style. So it was different. It felt different. It didn't feel like the old John Wicks. I cannot confirm nor deny whether that was good or bad. I just know that it was different. I just had a neutral feeling about it. I didn't have a good feeling or a bad feeling. I just had a feeling of, this is different. Let's see where this goes. The movie was a little slow to get to where I felt, wow, this movie rocked. The beginning was a little slow to get there. When they started with her first mission in the film, like the action was great to watch, but it didn't intrigue me at first, but it didn't bore me. It wasn't boring nor intriguing. Like I said, I had a complete neutral feeling in the beginning of this movie. But once it gets halfway through, it really starts to cook in a really good way. You have all sorts of awesome action sequences, 2 of which were very unique. One that involves grenades and the other that involves flamethrowers. That's not a spoiler. It's in the trailer, but I'm not going to go any further than that. Just know there's a whole sequence around grenades and there's a whole sequence around flamethrowers. So if that sounds to your liking, you're going to like this movie, because I promise you that those 2 parts, those are pretty cool. One thing of John Wick that I always loved is it was an action series that told its narrative through the action scenes. It prioritized action, and the dialogue took a second seat. The dialogue was basically an afterthought. The action was the primary way of telling its story, and the dialogue was there basically to back up the primary storytelling method. John Wick 1 and 2 were the strongest movies in the series. Those are my 2 favorite films in the series. Yeah, perfect continuity with each other, and they were the perfect example of what established John Wick as this awesome, amazing action franchise where its primary way of telling its story was through the action scenes and further exploring this criminal underworld with rituals and rules. It was all interesting and awesome. The dialogue sequences, though, were always simple and to the point. They were never talky or preachy or over explaining. And when you get into John Wick 3, I felt a slight disconnect from John Wick 1 and 2 to 3. And then when you get into John Wick 4, I felt another disconnect between John Wick 3 and 4. Then when you watch Ballerina, you feel another disconnect. So I had to do some research and find out, why do I feel this way? Am I crazy, or is there a reason? Turns out there is a reason. So back in 2017, the writer of Ballerina, Shay Hatton, he wrote the script for this movie Ballerina way back then in 2017, and he sold it to Lionsgate. After Lionsgate purchased that script, they hired him to revise Derek Kolstad's original script for John Wick 3. To those of you who do not know who Derek Kolstad is, he is the creator of the John Wick series, and he was the primary scriptwriter of the first 2 films. And he was originally supposed to be the primary scriptwriter of the third one. But then later on in pre-production, it seemed that they hired more writers to revise his script, and Shay Hatton was one of them. After John Wick 4, I noticed that Derek Kolstad was not even involved in the writing process. Shay Hatton, the writer of Ballerina, who sold his script to Lionsgate back in 2017, became the new lead writer of the series. And he was the lead writer of John Wick 4, as well as the lead writer of Ballerina. So, when I think about it, why do I have feelings of perfect continuity and strong synergy with the first 2 movies, and a little bit of disconnect with the movies after John Wick 2? Well, it's obvious. Derek Kolstad, the creator, wasn't involved, and Shay Hatton, the new writer, he's a different person with a different style and vision. So, narratively speaking, 3, 4, and Ballerina felt disconnected from the first 2. And the whole point of me talking about this is, I'm not blaming Ballerina, but it is because of Ballerina that this happened. And it could be because of creative differences. However, I could not find anything concrete as to why Derek Kolstad was removed from his own creation and why they decided to revise his original script for John Wick 3. You know, when you watch John Wick 3, you could see similarities between 3 and the first 2 films, but narratively speaking, it feels different. And then when you get to John Wick 4, it feels even more different than John Wick 3. And then, weirdly enough, even though Ballerina was written by the same guy who wrote John Wick 4, Shay Hatton, even Ballerina feels different. But that's only because they changed the director this time, Len Wiseman. Chad Stahelski was the director for the first 4 John Wicks. And the action scenes, let me tell you, one thing that John Wick never did wrong was the action scenes. From the first movie all the way through the 4th film, the action felt consistent. It was the narrative and the tone of the franchise that shifted and felt disconnected from the first 2. I really loved the feeling and the simplicity and the groundedness of the first 2. But one thing I felt when I watched John Wick 3 and 4 is they felt a bit more talky. And they felt a bit more, I don't want to say corny, but not as grounded as the first 2. Like I said, I think there's just way too many talking scenes. What John Wick 3 and 4 would say in a paragraph, John Wick 1 and 2 said in 2 or 3 words, or maybe a few sentences. And that was kind of the original aesthetic of the franchise. It was supposed to be this franchise told entirely by action scenes, backed up by dialogue, while immersing you into this dark criminal underworld with rules and rituals and all these cool things. And John Wick 1 and 2 were perfect. They're absolutely perfect action films, in my opinion. John Wick 3 and John Wick 4 are amazing action films. Please don't take this as me being negative towards them, and I am not being negative towards Ballerina. They are, however, lesser films than John Wick 1 and 2. And Ballerina is an even lesser film than John Wick 3 and 4, but not by much. The cast did so great with this. Len Wiseman did so great directing. Shay Hatton did so well writing this story. Everything just came together in a very fun, satisfying way. But it's not perfect. It's not perfect. It's not as what I would say perfect as John Wick 1 and 2. But it's still good. Another thing I want to talk about is apparently there's this rumor that Chad Stahelski came in and reshot like a whole bunch of this movie for 3 months without Len Wiseman, the new director, being there. It seems that that is false. Len Wiseman and Chad Stahelski both came out and denied those claims and said it was actually more like 2 weeks of reshoots, and both Wiseman and Stahelski were on set together. They worked together. So I'm not sure which is true. I don't see why Len Wiseman and Stahelski would lie, especially coming out together, but you never know. I'm not saying they're lying, but I'm not saying anything. I'm just revealing this information to you so you can make up your mind what you think and use it as consideration whether you want to see this movie or not. But I will say, was there reshoots confirmed by the studio? Yes, there are. So the question here is, does the film feel like an end result of reshoots? No. I think it all comes together quite well. Usually when you got a film that has a whole lot of reshoots, you could tell that sometimes you could tell, wow, there seems to be like a completely different version of this movie. But I didn't really notice that. I think mainly the reason Stahelski came in to do 2 weeks worth of reshoots with Wiseman was just to beef up the action scenes just a little bit. Stahelski did confirm that the only thing he really helped with was the action scenes. I don't know which action scenes they buffed up, because if it was only 2 weeks worth of action scenes, then that means the rest of the movie held up, because with the amount of action that was in this movie, it would have taken a hell of a lot more than 2 weeks to reshoot all action scenes. So that means this movie did pretty well. May or may not have even needed the reshoots. But hey, who am I to question that? Because with the reshoots, the end result is pretty awesome movie. Standout performances? Ana de Armas. She did really well. Naturally, I was a fan of her in 007 No Time to Die. She was in a small sequence, maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Those of you who've seen that film, you know what I'm talking about. She almost stole the whole movie with that 10 to 15 minute sequence. She did so well. I loved her character, how she performed. It was amazing. And in the back of my mind, I wanted an Ana de Armas action movie starring her. And that's what this movie is. Did Ballerina deliver on that dream? Yes, it did. She did amazing. They created this new style, this new fighting style for her character. It fits really well. It's got that John Wick action scene feel where they use their wits and their environment, just like you remember from the John Wicks. It does that. It does the whole open wide shots with long takes, just like you would expect and want from any John Wick film. It has all of that. It's not heavily edited. Very much a John Wick movie. And honestly, if this is how John Wick spinoffs are going to go, I really want some more. Can you imagine a John Wick spinoff of Halle Berry's character from John Wick 3? Or perhaps origin story of Winston, Ip Man's character from John Wick 4. There's so many side characters, and So many spin-offs you can make. And you can make spin-offs of new characters as well. But if this is how spin-offs are looking for John Wick, they could really do some more as long as they keep it to this level. So if they are making new spin-off movies, I'm for it. I'm all for it. One key aspect of John Wick that made the John Wick movies really, really awesome was the unique visual style. It looked really good. The set pieces, the color schemes, the grayscales, the filters, everything came in line to make the movie just look unique and awesome and good. This movie looks good, but not as good. And I don't know if it's because it's a different director, but as far as just the visual style, it doesn't live up to John Wick, but it still looks good. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe I'm just looking too much into it right now, and maybe I'll grow into it over time. But if they were to make any more future installments, I would like them to mimic the visual look of John Wick, just to make it feel more like it's part of the John Wick universe. You know what I mean? So that was my only complaint. Not really a complaint, just something to talk about. That I still love this movie, and I still loved how it looked, but I wish it looked a bit more like John Wick. When you think of how John Wick looked and how this movie looks, they don't quite mesh, but they're not quite different either. It's just, like I said, it's a different director, different team. It's still a good movie. That soundtrack, though, the soundtrack is just like the action scenes. It's another element of the John Wick franchise that never change, because it's done by the same guys, Joel J. Richard and Tyler Bates. And let me tell you, it's just as awesome as you remember the soundtrack from the first 4 films. Does this movie work as a John Wick movie? That's the important question. That's the main question you want to know. Does this movie work as a John Wick movie? Yes, it does. Like I said, it's not perfect. I have some problems with it. Sometimes my overall synergy and vibe with the film is interrupted, but very minimally. I overall enjoyed this film. For my final rating, I give this movie an 8 out of 10. Shocker, I know. I've given pretty much all my previous reviews on this channel an 8 out of 10, but hey, what can I say? If the shoe fits, it's going to wear it. This movie is an 8 out of 10. It's a super solid film. It's great. I loved it. Definitely highly recommend you go see this in the theater.
I'm working on it.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and don't forget to tell me, what did you think of this movie, and what is your ranking of all the John Wick films, and what is your favorite revenge tale? I will see you next time, and be ready to be judged.